we know that for more than a century after the founding, our constitutional order did in fact prevent religious establishment at the federal level, but that constitutional order permitted governments at the local, local and state level, and even at the federal level, to assist and aid churches in the promotion of the religious life of the American people, even at the federal level. Not a strict establishment. It was no, strictly speaking, no establishment, but a cultural establishment was the order of the day. And at the state level, as Timon points out, the police power of the states includes the duty to enact and enforce laws that protect and promote the health, safety, morals, order, peace, comfort, and general welfare of the people. And for most of our history in our country, we've taken it for granted that the promotion of religion falls under the proper police power of the various states. And the establishment of Sabbatarian blue laws offers an obvious instance of this, as did the requirement of biblical literacy, as well as the practice of prayer at the beginning of school days. So this was, our constitutional order just took for granted the general, not right, but duty of state governments to promote religion. However, in the decades after the Civil War, an influx of Catholic immigrants created panic in Protestant America. And by the end of the 19th century, many states passed so-called Blaine amendments that were designed to severely limit government support of religion, precisely so that Catholics would not receive state support in the education of their children and otherwise. And this was the first stage of this ideology of strict separation. And it was limited almost entirely to the prevention of public funding of Catholic institutions. So obviously, in this sense, Catholics have absolutely no investment in the ideology of separationism. But in that era, few, I think, Protestant government leaders were concerned with the support of generic Protestantism. After World War II, however, an extreme ideology of separationism took hold. We heard from both Timon and Josh about the Everson decision in 1947, but what really got the attention, I think, of Catholics was the 1948 McCollum decision. And in that decision, the Supreme Court deemed voluntary religious instruction in public schools to be a violation of the First Amendment. And then in two decisions in the early 1960s, the court ruled unconstitutional even the most anodyne ecumenical prayer. It was a very short prayer that, in the case of New York State, was composed by a representative from the Catholic community, Protestant pastor, and a Jewish rabbi, so that it would be, and it's a very, very anodyne prayer. It could be criticized for being vacuous rather than being theologically robust. And other decisions then continued in that era to severely curtail public support of religious symbols. Timon and Josh know that history much better than I do. And in this era, the ideology of strict separation was ascendant. It dictated that even the slightest hint of public support for religion would be a violation of the First Amendment. Now, I think legal scholars can debate this unfortunate evolution of church-state jurisprudence. But whatever one thinks about the rise of strict separationism over the last 70 years, there's one thing that is clear and entirely beyond dispute, and that is this: American Catholicism had nothing to do with it. The ideology of strict separation and its rise, American Catholicism had nothing to do with it. After the 1948 McCollum decision, the Jesuit theologian John Courtney Murray denounced the outcome. Driving Christianity out of government schools did not create, he recognized, a neutral environment, as John Wilson observed and as Al Mohler observed this morning. On the contrary, It threw the weight of government power behind secularism. Murray's very good in this speech that he gave. He said, in the place of true religion, you will have the idol of democracy, which was what the decision said our schools should not be supporting religion, but rather democracy. And Murray recognized that that's a kind of idolatry. Now, John Courtney Murray was not a revanchist Catholic. His reflections on the proper and fitting alliance of Catholicism with America's constitutional traditions were extraordinarily influential in the late 50s and early 1960s. And most scholars agree that Murray had significant influence over the drafting of the Second Vatican Council's Declaration on Religious Freedom, which emphasized the Catholic Church's support of the right of individuals to worship God, free from governmental coercion. But neither the declaration of the Council nor Murray withdrew support for the evident moral truth that men and women have a duty to encourage and support religion. I mean, this is what the Declaration on Religious Freedom states on this point. Quote, government is to help create conditions favorable to the flourishing of religious life, end quote. In other words, in Catholic teaching, civil authority has a positive duty to encourage religiosity among the citizens of the nation. And the reason for this duty is twofold. First is fundamental. We are created by God for the purpose of knowing and serving Him. We are not made simply to be rich, healthy, and satiated. Our souls seek transcendence. Therefore, a good society educates the young to look above, as it were, and not just below. If it fails to do so, if a society fails to do so, citizens become debased, addicted, and unhappy. Sadly, this is our present condition, the fruit of strict separationism. Mental health of the young is in the toilet. This has come about in part because of this triumph of state-sponsored secularism. The second reason that civil authority has a positive duty to encourage religiosity concerns social stability and the virtues necessary for sustaining a well-functioning polity. The founders often stipulated, and we've heard it from a number of speakers at this conference, the founders often stipulated that a free society requires a moral citizenry, and that, of course, religion is the great moral tutor. The more inclined a nation is to regular church attendance, the more well-ordered its public life will be. This was a consensus among the founders. And it's a common teaching in Catholic social thought. And again, in this matter, John Courtney Murray was far-seeing. He recognized that the ideology of secularism would undermine the American tradition of well-ordered liberty. And indeed, of course, it has. The great and the good in our times bemoan polarization. They wring their hands over the dysfunctional black underclass, which is now becoming increasingly multicultural. Institutions are collapsing. Our universities are run by feckless bureaucrats. These and other signs of social disintegration have many causes, of course, but primary among those causes has been the decline of religion and the triumph of a spiritually empty secularism. Now, our duty to honor and serve God is not a revealed truth. It's not a revealed truth. It's a truth of natural law that we have a duty to seek, honor, and serve God. Now, the true nature of that God is revealed to us in Scripture. Nor is the duty of civil authority to promote religion a revealed truth. That is, as I say, truth of natural reason. These are fundamental principles of natural law recognized by all societies that are not debased by the liberalism that makes secularism into an ersatz state religion. Although, I mean, we can talk in the discussion about whether Josh is right to say that a certain kind of imperfect or partial religion has taken the place of even secularism itself. Nor are these duties, duty to serve God or the duty of civil authority to promote religion, nor are these duties special Catholic teachings. But I would digress here and say that as a matter of historical fact, in the centuries, a reason why strict separation has nothing to do with American Catholicism, as a matter of historical fact, in the centuries after the French Revolution, the Catholic Church has been the single most powerful and articulate adversary of modern liberalism. And it has opposed liberalism's perennial efforts to destroy the religious life of the West. And this resistance has earned great antipathy from the secular powers of the modern West. In Germany in the late 19th century, the power of the state was employed in an effort to destroy the social influence of the Catholic Church. A few decades later in France, radical measures were imposed toward the same end. Charles de Gaulle, I think, grew up in Belgium because his father taught at a Jesuit school, and after the laïcité laws of 1905, it was illegal in France to have a religious school. And so the school moved to Belgium, where parents could educate their children in the faith free from government prohibition. As I've already noted, of course, the Blaine Amendments in the United States sought similar outcomes. And this historical experience of being the single most powerful and articulate adversary of a flesh-eating liberalism in the West, and the consequent persecution of the Catholic Church in the modern era has made Catholicism acutely aware of the dangers and destructive tendencies of secularism, and thus never a supporter of the ideology of strict separationism. Now, the Second Vatican Council set aside aspects of this anti-liberalism, which was understandable because sometimes it could become hysterical. But the Church did not become an uncritical cheerleader. She retained her concern for liberalism's tendency toward becoming an ersatz religion, the religion of secularism. Throughout his pontificate, John Paul II warned of the dangers of societies without transcendence. In retrospect, the main thrust of Catholic social teaching after the Second Vatican Council has been to try to save the liberal West from its self-destructive excesses by grounding the modern quest for freedom in the larger, perennial, and far more fundamental human quest for transcendence. So in conclusion, Texas, Oklahoma, and Florida have mandated biblical literacy for school children. Louisiana will require the display of the Ten Commandments in schools. These modest measures, I submit, move America in the right direction. And no Catholic, I think, in his right mind could object. On the contrary, we should be cheerleading. The ideology of strict separation has done great damage to our society. So, if I may draw from the words of Ronald Reagan, Justice Roberts, tear down that wall.